Welcome to the Cheating Secrets channel. When I arrived at the office on Monday, Dan said, "Do you want to take a couple of days off in Florida?" Elliot Rogers seems to need some support, considering all the upheaval in the last few months. Since Dan and I were co-owners of our firm, we usually didn't visit clients anymore. We had young, eager subordinates for that. But Elliot Rogers and his wife had been with us for over 15 years and had invested nearly $100 million, so they received special attention. I don't mind. Actually, it's a great time. The kids have gone off to college, and Carrie is visiting a friend in Nashville for a week. So, of course, I'll go and calm him down. A bonus for me was the chance to see my Uncle Tony. He's almost 80 now, lives right on a picturesque little river an hour north of Miami, and is as fascinating as ever. I went home, packed a bag for a few days, headed to the airport, and by 3:30, I was sitting with Tony on the balcony of his apartment, drinking beer and listening to the same old stories I had enjoyed since childhood. Every time a boat passed by, he would fall silent and pick up his binoculars. "Are you going to finish that story, or what, Tony? The guy at the bar lunged at you." He smirked, not taking the binoculars from his eyes. "Hang in there, my young friend. At my age, it's not often a guy gets to see naked boobs." He handed me the binoculars, and to my amazement, I saw 3 teenage girls and a guy waving from a small sailboat. The girls were all grinning and topless. Tony took the binoculars back. "See what I mean?" He chuckled contentedly. We shared family stories and drank a few more bottles of beer until I started thinking about dinner. Maybe a couple of steaks at the place Tony liked around the corner. He picked up the binoculars again, looked at a pale blue boat, carefully focused, and just stared. Then he said, "Holy crap," and handed the binoculars to me. It was about a 10-meter boat named My Blue Angel, gently drifting along with the current. In the cockpit, a stocky, short-haired man, around 30 years old, lay on his back on some cushions. A beautiful brunette, who was clearly a bit older, was straddling him, her head thrown back and her chest bouncing energetically. She had a large tattoo of a Chinese character on her right shoulder. You might wonder why I paid attention to the name of the boat or the tattoo on the naked woman. The explanation is simple. It was my wife, Carrie. Without saying a word, I handed the binoculars back to my uncle and listened to his comments until the couple disappeared around the bend. When they were out of sight, he lowered the binoculars and said, "Well, that was quite a show. I occasionally see couples doing that, Jack, but I have to say, that lady was something. If I were 20 years younger, more like 50, I smiled at him. I was very upset, but I wasn't going to talk about it with Tony. We went for our steaks, and after that, I drove Tony home, and he went to bed. I was in my hotel room by 9:30 with a lot on my mind. You might think I would have been devastated, but I wasn't. Carrie and I had been married for about 12 years. She was a great stepmother to my 2 children. My first wife had died in a train accident, and a very good wife to me. I loved and appreciated her, and I knew she loved me. Still, I wasn't entirely shocked that she was cheating on me. Carrie had always been a restless person. She never liked doing one thing for too long. During our marriage, she had 5 different jobs, numerous hobbies, ranging from knitting to country dancing and horseback riding, and she just never wanted to sit still. Carrie and I had a satisfying, intimate life. She was just as interested in sex as I was. She had no problem occasionally grabbing me and leading me to the bedroom. Sometimes we had gentle, typical marital sex, but other times, she was quite passionate. In fact, one of her favorite positions was straddling me, just as she had done with the guy on the boat. Even her exhibitionist tendencies weren't entirely surprising. Carrie had tried several times to get me to be intimate with her in public. We attempted it on a park bench and a couple of times in the back seat of my car, but I put a stop to it. I didn't want my name making headlines. Frankly, I wasn't devastated. I was angry and hurt, but I didn't see this as the end of my marriage. I didn't think Carrie intended to humiliate me. She didn't know where Uncle Tony lived, and she certainly didn't expect me to be watching the river that day. However, 2 things were very clear to me. I was going to find out much more about what was going on, and I was going to sleep with Stephanie Prince. To that end, I called Marjorie Bales in Nashville, where Carrie was supposed to spend the week. She seemed surprised by my call and a bit apprehensive. Sorry to bother you, Marjorie, but Carrie's cell phone doesn't seem to be working and I can't reach her. Could you put her on for a minute? Oh, sorry, Jack. She's in the shower. Can I ask her to call you back? We talked on the phone, and I smiled to myself. As I suspected, Marjorie was covering for her old friend. I wondered how many of Carrie's previous trips to Nashville were actually getaways with one friend or another. Carrie called me on my cell about 45 minutes later, quite a long shower, and we chatted amicably. I told her I was heading to a client meeting, but didn't mention my actual location. Before we hung up, she said she loved me, missed me, and would see me on Saturday. The thing is, I believed her. She truly did love me. I didn't think the affair was an attempt to leave our marriage or outmaneuver me. I thought my restless wife just wasn't very well suited for a monogamous life. After meeting with Elliot Rogers the next morning, I spent half an hour with Thomas Giardino, a private detective. I told him everything about the short-haired guy on My Blue Angel, gave him a photo of my wife to copy, and left him a substantial check. No need to barge in on them, I said to him, and I don't need compromising photos. Just carefully find out what's going on. Did she stay with him, or was it a one-time encounter? Who is this guy? Where is he from? And what does he do for a living? I want to try to figure out how they met and how long this has been going on. Before boarding the plane back to Charlotte, I called Stephanie Prince. Hi, it's the man of your dreams. Are you free for dinner tonight? Yes, I'm serious. Carrie is out of town, and I'd like to take you out for dinner. How about the Fig Tree? Fantastic. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. And listen, we're something that shows off that beautiful body of yours. I want every man in the restaurant to envy me tonight. I laughed and hung up. Then I called the Fig Tree and reserved a table. Stephanie Prince was a tall, very attractive redhead in her early 30s who lived 3 blocks from Carrie and me. She sold real estate, knew almost everyone in town, dated a lot, and for some reason, had a soft spot for me, even though I was just an average 41-year-old guy. About 3 or 4 years ago, after we'd met at a few neighborhood parties, she made me a serious offer. We were having lunch downtown, and she said, "Jack, could you do me a favor?" "Of course," I replied. "Name it." "I've been going through a really tough time lately. Could you take a couple of hours today and, well, blow my mind?" When I finished picking my job off the table, we talked about it. If I were ever to consider cheating on my wife with anyone, it would be Stephanie, and I told her that, but I took my marriage vows seriously. I know you're happily married, Jack, and I'm not trying to come between you and Carrie. I'm not looking for a husband or even a fairy tale romance. I love sex and I like you. If you want to spend some time with me in bed, once or more, just let me know. I let her down gently but didn't thank her for the flattering offer. I also didn't forget it, though it wasn't until I saw Carrie with that guy on the boat that I considered taking her up on it someday. The steelhead trout at the Fig Tree was the best I had ever tasted, but it paled in comparison to my night in bed with Stephanie Prince. I have to say that extramarital sex, even with condoms, is as amazing as people say. She was passionate, experienced, and tireless. I still don't know why she found me attractive, but she sure loved making love to me until I couldn't stand up anymore. And at least part of the time, Carrie was on my mind. Though, when Stephanie was close to me, with her vibrant energy and guiding my hands, I couldn't help but think of what I had seen the day before on The Blue Angel. But that thought soon passed. Stephanie expressed her joy and I soon followed, both of us reaching a serene state together. We eventually fell asleep, comfortably nestled together, with my hand gently resting on her chest. Dinner was surprisingly serious. We flirted, of course, and Stephanie kept hinting at her plans for me after dessert. But we also had a real conversation. She's so attractive that it's easy to overlook how thoughtful and intelligent she is, but our talk reminded me of that. It wasn't long before she asked the big question, right after we placed our order. "Okay, Jack, spill it. I'm glad you called, but what's going on?" I smiled. "Can't I arrange an elegant dinner with the most beautiful woman I know?" "What about Carrie?" "Yes, she's attractive too, but," I said, Stephanie playfully slapped my hand, smiling. Very funny. Seriously, what's going on? You've kept your distance since I showed interest a couple of years ago, so why now? I told her what I saw in Florida and how I felt about it. That's awful, she said. I'm sorry, Jack, and I knew she meant it. We spent most of dinner talking about marriage, infidelity, and trust. Stephanie had been divorced twice, both times from handsome men who cheated on her, which had nearly made her give up on marriage. She was very understanding. Over coffee, she asked, "So, what are you going to do?" I smiled. In the near term, I'm going to take you home and hope you invite me in. She gave me a half smile and gently touched my leg with her foot under the table. After that, I don't know. I think Carrie and I might be able to get through this. Maybe. I need to know how serious her affair is, and I have someone looking into it. But you know what? I think it's time to stop talking about Carrie. I signaled for the check. 5 minutes later, we were walking to the car, holding hands. 20 minutes after that, we were cozy on her couch, and a little while later, we were naked in Stephanie's bedroom. Over the next few days, the smile on my face from the amazing night with Stephanie would appear and disappear, alternating with gloomy thoughts about Carrie and the future of our marriage. People at work must have noticed something because on Thursday, Dan came into my office, closed the door, and asked, "What's going on?" Sighing, I told him the story. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Ask me next week," I said. "It depends on what the private detective finds and what Carrie says. She's coming back Saturday night, so we'll see." I spent Thursday night with Stephanie, and it was just as intense as the first time. I brought Chinese takeout, and we fed each other in bed when we weren't making love or pleasuring each other. "You know what?" I said to her around midnight as we sleepily watched Letterman. "I'm really having a great time." "Is that a surprise to you?" "You idiot." She laughed. "No, that's not what I mean." I kissed her. "The sex with you is just incredible, Stephanie. I'm serious. You're an amazing lover. But you excite me so much that I didn't immediately notice how much fun I'm having when we're not having sex. Just talking with you, laughing, watching you drip Kung Pao chicken on those amazing breasts." I leaned in and licked her, enjoying her shiver. "You're just... I can't believe no one has snatched you up yet. You deserve better than, well, than me, honestly." She turned off the TV and pulled me in for a kiss. "You're sweet, Jack. And I've had a wonderful time too. But don't sell yourself short. You're more of a catch than you think. And if Carrie doesn't get her head out of her ass, women will line up to make you feel better." "Including you?" I asked. She looked away. "I don't know. I've almost accepted that I'm not the settling down type, but let's just say I don't know and leave it at that." We left it at that, both understanding that things had gotten very serious. We cuddled a bit more, kissed, and then fell asleep. In the morning, Stephanie was cheerful and playful. We took a shower together, joked over breakfast, and then went our separate ways. Thomas Giardino, the private detective from Florida, sent me an email on Friday afternoon. "Here are our preliminary results. Please read and review the attached files, and then call me at the office. I'll be here until 6 p.m. I read the report, looked through half a dozen photos, and then called Giardino, talking to him for about 20 minutes. The owner of the Blue Angel was a 34-year-old named Roger Dion. He was the vice president of sales at a medical supply company and, according to his neighbors, quite the ladies' man. There was almost always a woman at his house, swimming in the pool, sunbathing on the deck, or even moaning and screaming in his bedroom. And the women never stayed long. Dion apparently enjoyed variety over monogamy. The private detective's photos included several shots of Carrie and Dion together, lying by the pool, getting out of a BMW in his driveway, and in one, eating together at a table in the back of the house. None of them showed any explicit activity, though it was clear she was staying with him. Several people in Dion's circle recognized Carrie from the photo I provided, but no one could recall seeing her before this week. So, what could I conclude? First, Dion was likely a short-term fling for Carrie, or at least a recent one. They probably met through work, since Carrie worked in the procurement department of a hospital in Charlotte and frequently dealt with medical supply companies and their executives. Whether she planned to continue seeing him after this week was unclear, but he didn't seem like husband material. Given that Carrie had been visiting her friend Marjorie about once a year for the past few years, it was likely that old Roger was just the latest in a series of affairs, not a singular event. She was evidently very careful in her escapades, as I would have had no idea what she was up to if it weren't for the coincidence of Uncle Tony's binoculars. I was left with a few questions, but not many. Only one main question remained. What was I going to do about it? Baby, I missed you. Carrie gave me a casual kiss and a tight hug. I kissed her back, then grabbed her suitcase, and we headed to the airport parking lot, with her holding my hand tightly. I hope you have a bottle of champagne for us. Since both Carrie and I frequently traveled for work, or in her case, to visit my friend Marjorie in Nashville, it had become a tradition for us to celebrate our reunions with champagne in bed, followed by passionate sex. Tonight was no exception. She quickly took a shower while I unpacked her bags and got the champagne ready, and we spent the next couple of hours playing in bed. She seemed as happy and excited as always. For me, though, it felt different. Fun and physically satisfying, but a bit empty. When we finished, she snuggled up to me, kissed my neck, said, "Thank you, baby, I love you," and fell asleep a few minutes later. On Sunday morning, Carrie, in her robe and with a sleepy smile, peeked into the kitchen where I was already brewing coffee and serving omelets and toast. She hugged me, smiling, then took a cup of coffee. We ate in silence, Carrie looking at me tenderly and squeezing my hand occasionally, while I just sat and watched. After her second cup, as she started to wake up, Carrie said, "Last night was really nice, baby. The best part about being away is always coming back to you, reminding me of what I've been missing." She smiled at me lovingly. I appreciated it, but it didn't stop me from saying what I had been waiting to say. "Do you think I should have used a condom, Carrie? I mean, since you've been sleeping with Roger Dion, do you think we're safe?" A smile froze on her face. "Jack, what? What did you say?" I waited, letting the silence build. Her face went very pale, and she couldn't meet my eyes. "Roger," I said. "The guy in Florida, with the boat. Don't play dumb, sweetheart, it doesn't suit you. Did you use condoms with him? What about the other guys you've slept with? I'm guessing there were at least 5 or 6. Were you a good girl and practiced safe sex?" Carrie started to cry. "Jack, it's not, what? Oh God. Baby, I'm so sorry, I didn't. Oh God." She buried her face in her hands, crying even harder. When she looked up at me, her tear-streaked face searching mine, I simply stared back. "Baby, Jack, oh God. I know I did something terrible, but how did you find out?" Silence. I wasn't going to answer that question. She looked at me and recoiled from whatever she saw, now crying harder, blowing her nose into a tissue. I stood up from the table. "I'm going to take a shower." When I returned to the kitchen half an hour later, shaved and dressed, Carrie was still sitting at the table, but she had cleared the dishes and washed her face. "Honey, I know I owe you an explanation. I know I messed up, and I love you so much, I just can't." "Sorry, Carrie," I said. "Not now. I need to be at Stephanie Prince's house. I think I'll be back by dinner, then we can talk." "Stephanie Prince?" Her sad face turned puzzled. "Yes, you remember Stephanie, the real estate agent? Tall, red hair? Turns out she's really good at, well, certain things. She seems to actually enjoy it, you know?" Carrie looked as if pigs had just flown through the kitchen window. "Stephanie, you're sleeping with her?" When I found out our marriage wasn't what I thought it was, I accepted her offer. Yes, we slept together. "See you at dinner." That day in Stephanie's bed, I felt I left a good impression, considering what I had been doing with Carrie the night before. Afterwards, we lay around for a while, eating sandwiches and watching the Carolina Panthers. Around 6, I got up to take a shower, enjoying the sounds from the bedroom where Stephanie was yelling at the referees to throw a damn flag once in a while. Would they? When I came out, she said, "Want to stay for dinner? We could order Chinese again, or pizza, or something." I smiled. "Sorry, but I can't today. I told Carrie I'd be home for dinner." Stephanie sat up, giving me a great view of her lovely chest. "What the hell? You mean she's back, and you're here? Does she know?" "Yes, she came home last night. I told her everything this morning about her friend Roger. And she definitely knows where I am, though I don't think she's too happy about it." A slow smile spread across Stephanie's face. "You're a badass, aren't you?" She got out of bed, pulled on a nightgown, and came over to hug me. "So what does this mean?" she murmured. "For us?" I looked at her. "Honestly, I don't know. The options are pretty limited, and after tonight, I'll know a lot more. I could get a divorce, in which case, you'd be number one on my to-do list." I smiled at her. "Or, I suppose Carrie and I could agree on an open marriage, given what she's been doing. In that case, refer to the previous point. Or, maybe, we'll sort things out and get back to where I thought we were all this time." Stephanie stroked my shoulders, looking at me thoughtfully. "I really like you, Jack. Both in bed and out of it, actually. But I don't think I should be in the middle of your marriage. That's not what I had in mind when we started this." I kissed her. "I understand. I need to sort things out with Carrie first. After that, we'll see. But I definitely wouldn't mind more of what we've been doing, Steph." Catching her off guard, I grabbed her and lifted her into my arms. She squealed, wrapping her legs around my waist and hugging me, giggling as I kissed her again. She wasn't light, but it was worth it. When I walked into the house, soft music was playing, Vivaldi or something similar. I peeked into the dining room and saw the table set for two, with placemats, nice napkins, and 2 tall candles. Before I could go looking for Carrie, she came in from the kitchen with a skillet of roast chicken. She was wearing one of her nice dresses, much fancier than usual for a quiet weekend dinner at home. "There you are," she said with forced cheerfulness. "Dinner is ready, so have a seat." A moment later, she returned from the kitchen with 2 more dishes, rice pilaf and spinach. As I sat down, she took a bottle of good white wine, which we both love, from the fridge and poured us each a glass. "This looks delicious, Carrie," I said. We silently drank our wine and ate our dinner without much conversation. There were some innocent topics, updates from the kids, what happened at my job, but too much remained unsaid, too many subjects to avoid. It was tense, and she clearly enjoyed it much less than I did. When she cleared the table and brought out a beautiful apple pie, I had suddenly had enough. All day, indeed, all week, my mind had been spinning with thoughts. Could my marriage be saved? Did I want to save it? Would I be okay if I became a single guy again? Was there any future with Stephanie? And I realized that, at least in that moment, everything depended on what Carrie had to say, on her story and how she told it. So, Carrie, shall we get to it? What first? Should we talk about my day with Stephanie or your week with Roger Dion? Who had more sex? How many other lovers or friends with benefits, or whatever you call them, have spread your legs? Will we have an open marriage or no marriage at all? Where would you like to start? It caught her off guard. She stared at me, her face pale and her mouth open. Then she started to cry softly. "Jack, I'm a terrible person," she said quietly, tears streaming down her face onto the table. "I'm selfish, immature, a liar, and a cheat." She looked up at me. "You know that before you. I never had a relationship that lasted even a year. I was always, restless or moody or claustrophobic, always dissatisfied with what I had. And when we met, when we fell in love and you proposed, I was so happy, so thrilled. I felt like finally, now I found the right guy and I'll love him to death, forever. No more restlessness, no more wondering what else or who else is out there. Just one person who made me so happy." Now I was the one who was surprised. No deflections, no attempts to downplay what she had done, even though I still didn't know everything. It was not what I expected. "And I was," she continued, "happy, with you, with us, even with becoming a stepmother to the kids. She looked at me. I can't express how happy I feel when I think about it. But that didn't stop me from continuing to be a selfish, spoiled, cheating crap. And I know I've ruined everything, and I don't even know what. At this point, she completely broke down, sobbing uncontrollably with her face buried in her hands. I waited for her to cry it out. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hold her, but a bigger part wanted her to feel what she was feeling. Loneliness, guilt, fear. She made me feel terrible, and I wanted her to feel terrible. Not very noble, perhaps, but can you blame me? After a few minutes, she began to calm down, catching her breath. "Why don't you go wash your face, and we can sit on the deck and talk," I said. When we sat down, I asked, "Do you have any idea what happens next?" She shook her head, looking worried, and I said, "Actually, neither do I. But we'll start with you telling me everything. Not the disgusting details, but who, how many, where, and when. And, damn it, Carrie, if you lie to me even once, even about something trivial, I'll throw your damn ass out of this house." "Okay," she said softly. "No lies." There were 3. A one-night stand 5 years ago when she was visiting Margie, and they went dancing at a club in Nashville. They both picked up guys and brought them back to Margie's place for the night. And then nothing for 3 years. Carrie was shocked at herself, terrified by what she had done. But the fear was short-lived. She did it again, picked up in a bar while visiting Margie, and spent the night in the guy's hotel room. He was a married businessman from Los Angeles. After that, Carrie said she wasn't as scared. She felt bad, swore to herself she'd never do it again, but she wasn't as frightened. The third guy was Roger Dion. It happened just as I imagined. They met through work in Charlotte, they flirted, and instead of telling him to back off, she let him keep pursuing her. After a few months of private lunches and stolen kisses, she agreed. But she told him she would never meet him in Charlotte. Eventually, he suggested she visit him in Florida. During her last visit to Margie, she flew to Nashville on a Saturday, then took a flight to Miami and spent 4 days with Roger before returning to Nashville for the rest of the week. She didn't want to risk flying home directly from Miami and me somehow finding out. She swore she had no intention of seeing him again, and I believed her. Nothing in her story suggested anything romantic, and the sex, at least the way Carrie told it, sounded pretty mundane. Exciting, like a new fling, but nothing earth-shattering. When she finished telling me her story, she leaned back in her chair, looking exhausted. To my surprise, I realized I already knew what I wanted. "Okay," I said, "now it's your turn to listen. When I point to you, you say yes, Jack. Otherwise, shut your damn mouth, okay? Carrie?" I pointed at her. She nodded, looking scared, then belatedly said, "Yes, Jack. I love you and value our marriage, and I hate what you've done. Part of me wants to grab you by the neck and slowly strangle you, watching your face as you die. You have crapped on me and our marriage. You betrayed our love, my trust in you, and all the hard work we both put in to make our marriage successful. You should be damn ashamed of yourself. You know that, right?" I pointed at her, and she quickly responded, "Yes, Jack," nodding so vigorously I almost smiled. "There are only 3 things that can happen, and one of them I've already ruled out," I said. I stood up and began pacing back and forth, watching her face. "First, we can get divorced. Nice, simple, and clean. We just say hasta la vista, and you can move out of this house and spread your legs for any jerk you want. You can be as restless, selfish, and irresponsible as you like. No lying, no breaking anyone's heart. Second, we can decide to have an open marriage. No point in living by our marriage vows. They're so outdated and oppressive, right? You sleep with whoever you like. I sleep with whoever I like, Stephanie Prince or anyone else, and if we feel like it, we can even sleep with each other from time to time. But this option doesn't work for me. It lacks real love, trust, and connection. It's not the kind of marriage that will make me happy, so I won't do it. Period. That leaves the third option. We stay married. We decide that the words we said to each other 12 years ago, about forsaking all others, still means something to us, Even after you pissed all over them and after I spent several nights in bed with Stephanie. I choose the third. She looked scared but said it immediately. Didn't I tell you not to talk? Yes, Jack, you did. I can't help it. I choose the third. That is, if I have a choice. You haven't said if you'll give me a say, but my vote is for the third. Good, I said. I was pleased but didn't show it. Now shut up again. The only vote that counts is mine, understand? Say, yes, Jack. Yes, Jack. A tiny hint of a smile appeared on her face, and I thought perhaps on mine too. Number 3 means there's a lot to fix, a lot to do. You'll get tested to see what STDs that jerk might have given you, and I think I'll need to get tested too. I was careful with Stephanie, but while you say you used condoms, I'll be damned if I'm taking any risks. You'll start seeing a therapist, and we'll begin going to marriage counseling. Honestly, I think the first one is more important. I don't see this as our damn problem, it's your damn problem. But I'm sure the counselor will help us communicate better. Even if it's just so I know when I need to kick your ass before you do something even a fraction as stupid again. Next, keep your legs together. Understand? I pointed at her, and she responded, Yes, Jack. Her face was tear-streaked, but she began to smile. Remind yourself that there's only one guy you flirt with, one guy you kiss or touch, one guy you sleep with. Always. And that's me. If you don't like it, if you think it's too restrictive, then we go back to number 1. I looked at her, and the smile vanished. Yes, Jack. Yes, I understand. Yes, absolutely. Good, I said, still pacing, thinking. There may be more as we move forward, things I think of later, or things the marriage counselor might suggest. But for now, there are 2 more. First, Nashville is done. You're never going there again. Carrie's head jerked, and she opened her mouth, but then closed it again. Then she nodded and said, Yes, Jack. Your little friend Margie was at the center of how you ruined our marriage, and that will stop. If you want to see her, you can invite her here. And after I rip her a new one, I might even let her stay in the guest room for a night or 2. Understand? Yes, Jack. She said it even before I looked at her. And I'm sorry. You're absolutely right about Margie and about all of this. Now, the last thing. I'm going to keep seeing Stephanie. Not all the time, but now and then, when I feel like it. For dinner, for sex, whatever. Until I decide I've had enough. Or you've had enough. Say it. I pointed at her. Yes, Jack. Her face was pale, and tears welled up in her eyes again. Not too pleasant, is it? Thinking about me with her? That amazing body, those long legs wrapped around me. Are we having sex or just kissing? Maybe just lying there, whispering sweet things to each other? No, Jack, it's not very pleasant. It hurts a lot. And I know why you're saying it, and you're right. So I say, yes, Jack. She cried a little but held my gaze. And I'm so sorry for being a selfish idiot, and for causing you so much pain. She broke down into sobs again, and this time I went over and hugged her, still angry but appreciating her warmth and softness. She hugged me tightly, crying, and finally said, You haven't told me your decision yet, but I'm still for the third option, with all your conditions. Good. That's my choice too. Number 3. Carrie slept soundly beside me, gently snoring. I was still awake, thoughtful, but feeling good. The evening had ended with a tender and intimate moment. She wanted to be close, but I declined because I felt strongly about not using a condom with my own wife. She seemed a bit embarrassed when I mentioned it. Even though we had been close without protection the previous night, I wanted to emphasize my point. When the blood test results come back, and not a day before, until then, we'll just have to find other ways to be close. I felt an amazing sense of optimism about my marriage. Perhaps, in part, it was a certain degree of maturity. At 41, my reaction to her infidelity was stronger than just the blind rage I might have felt at 25. As I mentioned at the beginning of this story, I know Carrie loves me. She's flawed, but she loves me. So if we can address the part of her that's flawed, maybe we have a chance. I didn't think I would be seeing Stephanie for very long. The sex was great, and I liked her a lot, but I couldn't see how it would help me rebuild my marriage with Carrie. Nevertheless, the possibility itself seemed like a good leverage, and I really did enjoy licking Kung Pao chicken off Stephanie's breasts. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of Cheating Secrets. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.